عباد المسيح لنا سؤال نريد جوابه من.
All right, how's it going, man? What's your name?
Christian. My name is Christian.
Christian, and what's your socials?
My socials is right now it's love_RC on Twitch TV, and on Instagram it's Ayo. It's Chris. Also,
Live right now.
Also on TikTok.
All right. I meant your social security number, but that's fine. I'll take that too. Kidding.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
So essentially, what we do is we talk to people about our religion and how it, maybe you would say stacks up, right, into what they believe, right? Because everyone naturally, even if they say they don't believe in anything, they have a religion, right?
Yeah.
Not believing in something is a belief in something. You just believe in the lack of something.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you. What do you believe? And let me tell you what I believe.
Okay. Well, based on what you guys are wearing, I kind of know, but I have a lot of friends that are Muslim, if I'm correct.
Good guess.
But yeah, but I have a lot of Muslim friends. A lot of respect for the Muslim community. I love y'all's food. I love everything. But, sometimes I don't like talking about religion because people get really offended when I say I'm an atheist. But it's more just because it's just really a personal thing to me. It's really like, I just don't have any, there's not any reason. I just like to live my lifestyle very openly and freely. I get to meet, like I said, I have a lot of Muslim friends. I have a lot of Buddhist, Catholic, Christian, all kinds of friends. So it's like, I don't like when there's like clash in between like religions and,
I want to point out something you said, right? First off, you say you don't like how there's clash, if there is ever a clash in religion. We would say the same thing, right?
Yeah.
We don't want there to be any malice or hatred in the planet, right?
Yeah.
We want us to peacefully coexist in a way that is at least, tolerable within God's rules, right?
Yeah,
so, for example, right, if there's a group of Nazis, I don't know if we can say it on your live,
don't
right?
worry about it.
Okay.
They're cool with it.
If there's a group of Nazis out there, can I come up to you and be like, well, no, let them be peaceful. We don't have to, get into it with them, right?
Yeah.
To a certain degree, there's a little bit of everyone needs to have a certain level of morality.
Yeah, morality is definitely important, especially when it comes to like those kind of people. What I do best is just try to ignore it. I can't because obviously there's always going to be like tension between, I'm brown, we both understand that, there a lot of hatred comes from that sometimes. The best I can do really is just ignore it and stay away from it.
But like, let's say, there's people right in front of you. I don't know how much you can say on your live, but let's say they're just killing babies right in front of you, right?
Yeah.
You're going to want to stop that, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, I'm not saying anyone here is doing that, but the point is that, there's tolerance and, coexistence to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
Which, sounds harsh to say, but when you think about it practically, like if people are doing crazy things, then, you're going to want to try to fight against that in a way.
Most definitely.
Okay.
I think...
And, we try to do so in a peaceful way too, right? We're not coming out here with swords telling everyone, hey, you have to believe what we believe at the end, right?
And that's part of, I think that's part of the thing where education comes in place.
Okay. But no, the other thing that I noticed that you said is, you kind of like, to have your freedom to do what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
We empathize with that at most, right?
Yes.
People want to do what they want to do. They want to do what they like, right? But at the same time, right, if you're in school and you want to have easy A's, can you just go cheat on all your assignments and copy off people?
No, but that's where I kind of bring up the subject again, where like education comes into place. There's a difference between what he said and what I said.
That's fine.
That's
fine. You can just focus on here.
He's preaching all that, but to me, it's like I have a lot of friends from different religions, and I don't really have an opinion on how or what you want to believe, but I do believe that education is a big proponent into.
And that's great, and that's the whole point.
Stopping all that, I don't think. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I agree with you about education being important. That's the whole, emphasis on engaging conversation like this.
Yeah.
If someone was born, believing exactly what was told by the people in their circles, and they never expanded, they never talked outside of it, then they wouldn't be able to learn anything, right?
Yeah, and it's a big world, so it's kind of hard to put everybody in the same circle.
Right. What was your name again?
Christian.
Christian, let me ask you some of the hard-hitting questions now. We sort of lubed you up. All right, now we're gonna get into it. All right.
Go ahead.
So, where does this universe come from, right? we see the sky, the moon, it's over there. We see the sun setting over there, the clouds, see the earth under us, the mountains. Everything is here.
Yeah.
Right. That much is oblivious. Is obvious. Okay. But how did it get here? Right.
I think that definitely is a very hard question to answer. Personally, to me, there's no real answer, mainly because it's hard to prove any of the answers that everybody has.
So what if I did prove it to you? What if I showed you a proof that there was an answer to this?
Is it like a theological proof?
Hypothetically, it could be any kind of proof.
See,
my question to you is...
Hypothetical isn't proof, though.
No, exactly. No,
that's what I mean. It's a hypothesis.
Yeah, let me say two things, right? First off, I do think that I do have a proof, and I'll show it to you in a second here. Okay. But the reason I'm asking you hypothetically, and that's the second thing, is if I were to show it to you, right, if this were to exist, right, would you then say, okay, that's cool, have a nice day? Or would you be like, wow, that's cool, this is really gonna, make me think about how I live my life?
I would have to do a deeper dive onto, just understanding.
That much is fair,
I like I said, I'm not here to judge you or... especially like on beliefs. I'm not really big into like judging people on their beliefs, unless it's just like some radical crazy things, like obviously you said killing babies earlier,
right? Of course,
that's obviously crazy, but
so let me tell you what I think about it. All right.
Okay.
So much as we know, everything here is here.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the fundamental laws of existence that we can see within every single thing, whether it's you, me, the river, the buildings, right?
Yeah.
Everything that is existing has to come from something,
yeah.
Right? You were only here because your parents met and they, they conceived you, right?
Created.
Exactly. This bridge is only here because the manufacturers and the engineers came together and they built it up, right?
Yeah.
The river is only here because the rain came down. Everything has a reason why it's here. It has a source to it. So in the same way, we can keep going back with every single thing. We can point at anything, even if it's this bench, right? And we go back and back. Okay, where did this bench come from? The raw materials and the metal in the earth. And where did the metal in the earth come from? It came from gases and the earth forming through molding and ice rocks in space. Okay, well, where do all these materials in space come from? Okay, well, it came from the 14 billion years ago and this hot expanse of dense masses.
Yeah. Well,
you keep going back. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where every single thing has to rely on one source, right? Yeah. They call this the Big Bang, right? They say that at the very beginning of the universe.
Another theological. No, well, I would say theological. It's more theory.
Yeah. That much is theory, right? But the point is, however far back we go, you're gonna have to find only one source to everything, right? They tell you that as far back as you go, every single thing in creation was at one single point and has to come from something. So that's something, right?
Yeah.
If it were to be, the creator of everything, right, we would call it God. Does that much make sense?
I mean...
But here's the thing.
That's where belief comes into play, right?
But here's the thing, right? That thing that we're calling, right, it can't be something within the universe. It can't be a man. It can't be the sun. It can't be stars. It can't be an idol, right? It has to be something outside, which doesn't need to be created.
Yeah.
Because then it would just be another thing that we have to look for the source for, right?
Yeah.
And there is something out there that isn't created that created everything. Now that's not belief. This is just logic based off of what we know.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Like I said, whenever it comes to beliefs, like how you're explaining it, there is, like, I would say, meaning to it. But what I feel sometimes, at least to me, there is a lot of things that a lot of people, I wouldn't even say religious people, but just like when it comes to like, I think people forget how some things work on even on the scientific level. It's like when people will ask, how's water created, right? Well, it's H2O, which is the chemical,
molecules,
reaction.
Atoms.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with a lot of people, they'll get crazy when I tell them, it's like, well, the way H2O works, it's whenever a chemical reaction is pretty much just it comes from heat, right? Well, that's when they trip out, and it's like, well, how did heat create water? That's what we're working on. That's kind of how all these studies come into play. And I feel like sometimes, like, hopefully I don't offend any religions or whatever, but when it comes to religion, it's like things like that. Sometimes they try to either forget that some of those things work that way, and then like explaining it is just very hard. And especially like when religions were created, I would say I feel like the human brain was very, very primitive, to the point where like
it needed an answer.
Where now, like, you know, back in the days, not everybody was allowed to read. Not everybody was allowed to do math, learn, and that's why I try to speak a lot about on education.
That's good.
Because when it comes to education, you can educate people not just on religion, but also on like my beliefs when it comes to like, okay, well, like I said, I'm an atheist, so I would say it's not really, I don't have a belief in God, if that's really what it means. But I can respect somebody if they have, you know, other beliefs. I just personally, I just don't know how to. I know how to interact with a person. I just wouldn't know how to fully educate them on how like some things work. And you know, having this talk right now, it's like I told you, back then the mind was very primitive. You can really say a lot, and then a lot of people would generally believe, you know what I mean, just because they needed that belief system, they needed a form of help, you know what I mean.
So Christian, you know, I feel like you gave a lot of explanations of how you feel about social interaction and science and education, right? Which is all good and dandy, right? But I want to kind of focus on the question at hand, right? I'm kind of saying something simple. You know, thank God we're not in the past 1400 years ago. They had primitive minds, like you say, right? You know, we have evolved minds. So we're going to use these two evolved minds right here to think about what I'm saying. The two premises that I set up are quite simple. That everything needs to have a cause, right?
A cause and effect.
And everything in the universe relies on one cause that brings out all the other ones, right? Because every cause that we find here in the universe is going to need a cause itself. So that cause itself is the creator. Is that much, you know, complicated or difficult?
The issue that I have with like the creator is I would really want to understand who this creator is.
That's really great.
Instead of being told who he is.
That's really great. And you know what, Christian? The great thing about Islam, and I would even argue on behalf of other religions as well, even though I don't ascribe to them, right? Is that they do really well in exactly this metric that you asked for, and for knowing who the creator is. Now, agnostics and atheists, right? They have their pros, right? They feel like they have science backing them. They feel like they have, you know, logic backing them. To be frank, I would argue opposed, right? But as aside from the point, right? What I'm saying now is to believe in God is to have a purpose. Now, if we were to conclude based off of this first argument that there is a creator out there, then the next step is to say, okay, well, who is he? Which is exactly what you did, which is the sound, reasonable thing to do. We as Muslims answer that. We come in and we provide the next step for someone who knows there's a creator but wants to find him. We have a book that is derived from the Prophet himself, and we have preserved it from him, that teaches us exactly what you're asking. The answer you're looking for in life, who is this creator, is actually given to us in a book, and we have free copies right here. We're about to give you one right here. I'm gonna do it. But the point is that we don't just have a book, we have the book. Because other religions, right, now with all due respect, we're just talking academically, other religions have books that have been changed over time, right? Historically, the scriptures have been corrupted by man, changed by man, added in, taken apart, twisted in their teachings. You know, they go to gatherings and they teach the opposite of what's found in the books. In the Qur'an, as Muslims, we actually have only what is said in the Qur'an. You know, what we teach in the mosques is actually exactly the same way that the Prophet taught 1400 years ago. We preserved it. And how do we know that this book is the true book? Because there are miracles in it. Scientific miracles, historical miracles, biological miracles. And I will show you them one by one so that there is no doubt that this book is actually from the Creator himself, who knows better than us about history, about archaeology, about geology, about biology, right? These are all found in the Qur'an, which prove that it's not written by a man. What do you think about this?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
How do we know that this person that wrote the book, which is Muhammad,
Yes,
right?
you know your stuff.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
There we go.
I have a lot of friends.
Say your question. How do we know?
But the question to me is like, what is, I wouldn't say even like historical evidence. I would say like, again, here I come with the word proof, and that's what a lot of...
That's fine, and we have it.
A lot of religious people are, I wouldn't say afraid, it's just, they don't like that word. And it's like...
We love it. It's like, in the Qur'an, actually. It says to bring proof before you believe.
But where do we find in like, one, accountability, two, I wouldn't necessarily say proof, but like how do we trust this word? And like anybody could say, God came and talked to me. I could say that. But how are you going to believe me?
Exactly. So let me go ahead and give you a parable, right? Imagine two men. One man.
We can't imagine. This is real life.
It's a parable, right? So imagine two men. One man comes and he says, I have a book from God. The second man comes and he says, no, I have a book from God. Well, how do we discern? We look at the books, right?
Yeah.
One book says, hello everyone, 1 + 2 = 3. This is a book from God. And by the way, you guys need to all give me your money. The second guy comes and he says, hey, that tower over there is going to fall down in 10 seconds. It falls down. And then he says, the moon over there is going to split. And the moon splits. And he says, by the way, for you guys in the future, go over to South America. You're going to find an ocean that looks just like this. And it has these qualities, and it's salty in this area, and it's not salty in this area. But I've never been to South America, by the way, and these guys can testify for me. All of these things and more, right?
Yeah.
And then he doesn't ask for your money. He just says, be a good person, and in the afterlife you're going to be held accountable for it. Don't kill each other, right?
Yeah.
Who's the one who's telling the truth?
Well, it's also like I said, how do we know this person is a good moral person? Like we weren't there to experience this person. We're only here.
Well, hold on. I'm just asking about the example I gave. I'm not. Yeah. We're gonna get into this in a second.
You know what I mean? But like, how are you expecting me to, like give my opinion on who I'd want to believe when it's like I don't know either of these two people you were talking about? So this is when I come from my atheistic view, where it's just like, well, personally, like I don't even like that was just a broad example of like the whole scientific theory and all that. But I just try to live personally. I wouldn't even say strive away from God. I think that's the wrong way to say it. More just like I try not to, at least in my atheistic view, I try not to incorporate God in what I do, because I know.
But I kind of want to pull us back to the parable that I gave, right? In the example, would that not be sufficient evidence that he's speaking truthfully from God?
How do we trust that evidence? that's my question. Because
if somebody says, hey, the moon is going to split, and you look at
somebody, we have. So
listen, it's an example, right? I'm saying hypothetically, if this were to happen, would that not be sufficient for you?
No, I think
if somebody's saying the moon's going to split and it splits, you wouldn't believe him?
I wouldn't believe him, but that's where I come back.
Somebody splitting the moon isn't sufficient for him to be have inhuman powers, having knowledge from God.
The moon doesn't split to me.
No. I'm saying if
those craters actually are created from asteroids.
No, but listen, I'm saying if someone were to tell you, hey, the moon is going to split, and it does right in front of you, is that not sufficient for you to believe him?
I wouldn't believe until I see it.
Okay, but if you did, would you then believe him?
Yeah, but I would still need evidence. Like,
that's good.
Why did that happen?
That's good, right? So let's not take it further than what I'm asking, right? I'm just saying, like, if you were to see this, then you would believe it, right? This is proof of prophethood, okay? Now...
I wouldn't say necessarily. I would say it's more just like,
If someone says, I'm a prophet, and the moon is going to split right now, and the moon splits in front of you, you wouldn't believe him?
Well,
that's also a trap question.
Yeah, that really is a trap question.
What's the trap?
The trap is he has to answer one way, or he'll go against his belief system.
Yeah,
if he doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, it's not really like.
Wait, hold on. Why is there loyalty to the belief system if it goes against what's reasonable?
Belief system too.
Yeah.
But no, if someone were to come to me to say something logical, I wouldn't have any problem saying it because
you're asking a trap question though.
What's the trap about it? Hold on, Ahmad, I got this.
Yeah.
What's the trap question?
Trap is that if he doesn't agree with you, he goes against your beliefs, making you right. So that doesn't give him an open-ended opinion.
So,
that makes it a trap question.
So let's do this, right? Forget
Which is, no offense, that's basic journalism.
No, let's do this, right? Forget about beliefs, right? Neither side is on behalf of Islam, neither side is on behalf of atheism, right?
Okay.
I'm just saying, if there was someone, right, we're thinking logically here, if there was someone who claims, hey, I'm a prophet, and the moon is going to split right now, and the moon does split.
Who is this logic, though?
Who is this logic?
Yes.
Logic is a thing, not a person.
But who is explaining this logic? And why?
I'm asking you.
And why did he know?
So I'm asking.
What made him more? I would say even smarter, or not even smarter, but what would make him?
I'm asking for your logical opinion on this. If someone were to say, "I'm a prophet,"
that's my logic.
It's not sufficient that someone splits the moon in front of your eyes.
I would want to know how he would know this. Why did he speak on this?
You're adding to the parable. I'm saying. It's as simple as this.
Then that's where the bait comes in. You know what I mean? Like
there's no bait. There's no bait.
It's like
I'm just asking you a question.
You would want me to agree with you.
No, I want you to tell me what you think is right. I'm not like you saying yes to this doesn't mean, hey, now you're a Muslim, you have to come to the mosque. No. I'm saying, okay, is it sufficient for you to believe someone if they say they're a prophet and the moon is going to split, and then you look at the moon and then it splits? It's a very straightforward question. It's not about beliefs. It's not about Islam or atheism. I'm just asking, is this a logical thing that you should believe him?
If it split, I would want to see it happen as he's saying it.
Yeah, and within the example I'm giving, you do see it.
How do I see it?
With your eyes.
The moon's not split.
I'm saying hypothetically. It's an example.
Okay, then hypothetically, I agree with you.
There we go. That's exactly what I'm asking. It's literally all I'm asking.
Then what comes from this?
That's good.
Hold on. I'm being
that's all I'm asking. Okay, thank you. Now that we got past that, right? My next point that I want to go forward with was that since someone splitting the moon is a valid reason or valid proof of them being a prophet, then I want to show you that historically we have eyewitness testimony and a mass transmission of the event where the prophet did split the moon exactly. Now, you're a logical person, right?
I would think so.
That's good, right? When it comes to history, when we have mass transmission of something, we're able to pretty soundly deduce that it's an accurate testimony of history.
Not really.
Not really.
I disagree on that.
So let me ask you something. Did you see the French Revolution?
No.
So do you think it happened?
It did happen.
How about the Holocaust? Did you see it?
Yes, but all we know
How do you know, though?
Because historical accounts, but that doesn't mean they're all accurate.
Okay, so
whoever wins decides who wants to make these historical accounts. Like if I were to go to let's say Mexico, right, another country, and if we were to go conquer Mexico, we would most countries, especially back then, historically, what they would do is convert those people with or without say. That's not, Ottoman Empire, the Crusades. These are different examples of how that happened. It wasn't really, and like I said, no offense. I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah, no, you're fine. We're not offended at all.
And it's even happening right now with this is probably like a bad way to put it, but like people say with like Zionism and all that stuff happening in Palestine, it's like people are gonna want to convert regardless of what you want to do, and that's when forced conversion comes in. And that's when I don't agree with it.
So when it comes to history, it's not just about beliefs, right? It's not just about which group was in power and then they get to choose what's history. We actually have a concept of corroboration. Let me explain to you how corroboration works in history. If you were to get arrested, okay, and they were to ask you, hey, what's your boy's name right here?
Arnold.
Okay, they ask you, hey, what does Arnold do? What did Arnold do last weekend, right? And then you're like, okay, well, me and Arnold, we went out, we went to McDonald's, we got some food, we went home, we watched a movie. They're gonna start asking you details. They're gonna say, okay, well, what movie did you watch? What did you order? What did he order? What car did you go in? Was there traffic or not, right? They're gonna ask you details, and if they go and they ask him the exact same questions, and he corroborates, meaning he has the same details as your story, right? And then they go and they ask your girlfriend, okay, what were those two guys doing? And she says the same thing. And they ask your mom, and she says the same thing. If there's all this corroboration, or as when in the case of Islam, mass transmission, where multiple people, so many people, too many to count, are all testifying of the same thing, then we're able to reasonably deduce that this is a true and accurate telling of history. So you followed along with what I said about corroboration?
Yeah.
So in Islam and in history, what we have, like for example, for the Holocaust or the French Revolution, right? we don't see it ourselves to know that these things happened, but we have so many writings and historical testimonies of the Holocaust happening, Anne Frank's diary, or Napoleon's journals, and the French Revolution, right? All these things, right, to tell us about history. Even though we don't see it, since we have so many people attesting to the same details, we're able to deduce that this is a reasonable telling of history. Now, when it comes to Islam and the Prophet splitting the moon and the Prophet doing so many other miracles, we have so many recordings of it that are authentically recorded, right? That they have been preserved over time, and they are written through multiple lines. Multiple people have written the same thing, and they all have the same details, right?
Yep.
When we see all this, then we're able to logically say, okay, it's more reasonable to say that this guy actually did this thing than it is to say that, hey, everyone in this country and everyone with different beliefs, even the non-Muslims attest to this, right? Okay. People with different beliefs and different ideas, they all agreed about this one thing, which, they just happened to agree on by chance.
They did. Like I said, there were many empires that didn't believe it. There were many, I'm trying to think of historical reasons. This is just coming off the bat of my head. But
are you aware of Occam's razor?
Occam's razor, no.
Occam's razor is a logic razor, meaning that it's a way to shave off possibilities, right? And the way we do it with Occam's razor specifically is the conclusion that the possibility, or the conclusion with the least assumptions is most likely the true one, right? And that seems pretty sound, right?
The conclusion
with the least assumptions
is probably true.
Yeah. Like if I say, there's a bench here, right?
Okay.
We could say a bunch of ideas of how it got there. Maybe some guy threw it and then it landed here. Or maybe, like a bunch of birds that were flying and they just happened to carry it from over there. Or we can say, no, construction workers brought it here and they planted it in, right?
That would make the most sense.
Because we're not assuming that, okay, all these birds, we know that construction workers work on bridges and that this bridge was built.
Yes, yeah. But like I said,
so here's how I'm going to wrap it in, right?
We weren't there to experience that or witness that.
Exactly, and since we don't have evidence, we're not going to say, okay, 100% that this is what happened, but the most reasonable conclusion is that, yeah, construction workers brought it here.
Well, my job isn't to disprove that. And that's when, like I said, it's not to offend anybody. My job isn't to disprove that. It's more just in my sense, logic. In my logic, it just wouldn't be sufficient evidence to me. I would
that construction workers brought it here.
No. The whole moon splitting.
Well, because right now,
with that, with the whole construction workers bringing it here, it's like obviously there was a big project that you can go see. Like you can go to the city council and see how
there's plates like at the front of the bridge that show pictures and stuff, right?
Yeah. So there's okay. So there's kind of like some form of like historical text that us as we're living in present time, we can connect the evidence that yes, that was placed there by a construction worker.
Exactly, and even though we don't have we don't see it with our eyes, right? We can still come to that conclusion because when we work with our beliefs, we don't just go by what we have concrete evidence of in front of us, right? We go by what's reasonable. For example, every time you turn on your car in the morning, there's perhaps a 0.5% chance that your car blows up, right? It could happen.
Yeah.
It's possible, right? But we still go in the car every morning. We still turn it on because
Tesla.
Right? It's still reasonable for us to conclude that our car is safe to turn on in the morning.
Yeah.
Now, in the same way that we go by reasonable deduction, right? We follow what's not having the most assumptions. We have to pray. How much time?
18 minutes.
Oh, okay, I'll wrap it up. Okay, so in the same way that we use our deduction to follow what has the least assumptions in our daily life, when it comes to our belief, we don't want to follow conspiracy theories. We don't want to keep asking for physical proof in front of us, right? If we have mass testimony of the Prophet doing something which is miraculous, which hypothetically would be sufficient for us to believe him, and then we end up seeing history books showing that he did it, not just history books written by Muslims, right? But written by all different peoples in all different times, all agreeing on the same details, that Muhammad did things that proved that he was a prophet, then we should actually follow him as a prophet. That's how we use our reasoning to lead our actions.
But I still have like I said, I believe.
And I won't sit here and act like I proved it to you, right? Because that takes more time, right?
Well,
but I've shown to you the steps as to how we get to that conclusion.
And I can understand where you came from that conclusion. I will say I've never read the Quran.
So go for it.
I wouldn't say. Look, I grew up Catholic. You know, I'm Mexican. 90% of Mexicans are Catholic. I became an atheist about when I was like 10. You know, somewhere around there. I was more agnostic because, you know, the transition and all that. Just trying to like figure out what
find your way.
But I will say the best thing I can do is read the Quran.
That's great. And let me add on to that too, Christian. You know, I didn't prove anything to you yet today, right? And I'm gonna wrap it up because I know you probably have to go. We have to go pray, right? But what I did was I set up the groundwork for how we're going to put in the information that you're going to get when you end up reading the Quran, and you end up researching about it. Right?
I mean, I want.
Did you write down the open mosque? No. Write it down. Sorry. Let me finish what I'm saying. Sorry, but we set up the groundwork for you to have the placement what to do with that information, right? When we see mass transmission of the Prophet's miracles, or when we see the logic of how Allah is described to have created the universe and created all things, right? And He has power over all things, right? When we see that, it's now, right? Since we talked about, you know, what's sufficient for you as evidence, we're not just going to read it and be like, okay, well, that's interesting, let me move on, right? We're going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist who's going to wait until I see God in front of me to start following Him. No, I'm going to follow what's reasonable based off of the evidence that's in front of me. And now you're going to read the Quran, you're going to read about what Islam teaches. I want you to also go onto YouTube or Google or whatever and look up proofs/miracles of the Quran/Muhammad. Okay, and the reason I'm so confident is because I know you're going to find so many.
Look, I have Muslim viewers, so they know. Send them the links, guys. They send me the links all the time.
Send them the links. Watch them. I'll be watching your stream to see. We can even do another stream together. I don't mind. But go ahead and watch them, and I think they're going to be so eye-opening to you.
Like I said, I will read the Quran just to, just to get, because like I said, I know nothing about the Quran. I just know very little from friends of Assalamu alaikum. But it's like, I did the same thing with Christianity. Also, I was raised Catholic, so I read the Bible, and it's just like, I think for me, it's just better to understand, at least for me to make friends. Like, I consider you a friend, we
had a good conversation.
I don't think we have any bad tensions or anything. But I think personally, like for me, it's just more important to understand instead of hate. And
that's good.
Hopefully, your people, they get that message too. Because it's like, I don't have to convert. I don't have to,
And we can't force you to.
Yeah, you can't force. It's like, especially, it's a free country.
Exactly.
But it's like, I think it's just more important to, even if you can't convert anybody, at least be responsible and at least show some kind of teaching and understanding, and that way you can respect each other, not just argue all the time and,
That's good.
Go through all that. But
all right, Christian. It was nice talking to you.
عباد المسيح لنا سؤال نريد جوابه مما